Hey, are you looking for some great books on leadership? Stay tuned and I can recommend you some right here. Hey all, Janae here, also known as the Well-Rounded Black Girl. I'm very excited to be back here with another video on Thursday this time. As promised, I'm getting better at this. I hope I'm getting better at it. Anyway, as you can tell from the title and the little intro, I'm going to be recommending 4 different books that have really helped me kind of develop and hone my leadership skills. I talked a little bit in a previous video about how honing those leadership skills has really helped me to be able to find my voice. It played a big role in helping me to realize what my purpose is and helping me to align with living with, help me to live my life in a way that aligns with that purpose. And so I just wanted to do something quick. I feel like my videos are all pretty long, and so I just wanted to do something quick that might help somebody out there if you're looking for some resources on leadership and you just haven't been able to find it yet, or you just haven't thought to. I just, put some stuff together and I'm going to talk about it here. Like I mentioned, this video is going to be pretty quick. I'm just going to introduce each book. There are 4 of them, and talk a little bit about it very briefly. I'm not going to do any full-on reviews. I do feel like 1 or 2 of these books I might review in the future to go a little bit more in depth. But for right now, I'm just going to kind of give you a general overview of what the books are so that you can decide whether or not you might want to pick it up. So the first book that I want to talk about is a Harvard Business Review collection, and the title is On Leadership. So Harvard Business Review puts out these collections of different articles. There's typically, I think, 10 articles in every book, and they're just articles that have been published through the Harvard Business Review over time, and they've made these little mini collections based on whatever the topic of the articles are. I love the Harvard Business Review books. I have one on managing people, on managing yourself. There are so many others out there. I definitely suggest that you go take a look. If On Leadership isn't your thing, they have so many other topics to choose from. But because this is a video about books on leadership, I'm going to talk about On Leadership. And the thing that I like the most about the Harvard Business Review books is that sometimes the articles in the books kind of contradict each other. They're from people with differing opinions of thought. And I think that's perfect because it gives you a way to consider ideas that you may not have considered before, agree, disagree, whatever. But there's still going to be something for you, most likely in the book. And that way, even if you don't agree, at least you'll have a better understanding and can maybe come to a better conclusion than you would have if you were just kind of in the dark about other ways that people go about managing their leadership skills. And just in general, content-wise, I really enjoyed all of the articles that were in the On Leadership book. They really kind of forced me to think about my leadership skills, my style, what was working, what I felt had worked in the past, what didn't work so much, all of that good stuff. It just gives your brain a good tumble in terms of the different ways there are out there to lead. I think a lot of the time we sit and we find a leader that we really, that resonates with us, and we feel like that way is the way to lead. Or anyway, we might see a good leader and say, okay, that's how I want to lead, but that might not be what comes naturally to you. Or that might take some time and effort to get to that leadership style. And some of these articles really put in a lot of thought and give lots of examples and lots of practical tips in terms of like how to hone those skills and work with what you have, assess what you don't, and then work to get there as well. So the next book that I want to talk about is something called Soul of a Citizen. Now I have to admit, I'm only about halfway through this book. I've been reading it for years, and it's not that it's boring. It's actually super interesting. It's just the type of book that you can take in chunks and glean a lot from it, but you don't have to sit down and read it in all one setting. Now, I probably should have finished it by now, but I do think that it's had a lot to do, again, with helping me to find my voice and understand my passions and kind of understand the vast, just the ridiculous amounts of ways that people can come to leadership positions. So Soul of a Citizen is basically about normal everyday people who have gone on to lead big or small social movements in their local or national communities. And it goes in and does not necessarily a case study, but they interview, people who were at the forefront of these movements. And a lot of them talk about how this wasn't something that they saw themselves doing. They didn't dream of leading a big social movement or a small social movement, when they were a kid. This is something that kind of fell into them because of something they were super passionate about, something they just couldn't let go. And so I really love reading the stories of how people get into their different causes, what motivates them, and how they keep going when it's difficult. Because there are some people out there who I don't know if I agree with the term natural born leader, but there are some leadership characteristics that I think are very desirable, and there are people out there who do kind of come by those naturally. But if you don't, it's not something like I didn't sit at home as a kid and think, I really just want to amass a big following and have people, follow me everywhere. I just want to guide a whole bunch of people to this one destination. That was never like in my big plan. So it's just refreshing to see that other people kind of fall into their passions similarly. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to be leading a big social movement or a small one anytime soon, but I'm just saying that to see the way that kind of normal everyday citizens go about that is really refreshing and gives you a good perspective on the way you lead and how you kind of come to really putting your purpose with your actions. The next book that I want to talk about is called Daring Greatly, and it's by Brene Brown. Sorry, I didn't mention that last video was by Paul Loeb. But this book, Daring Greatly, is by Brene Brown, who I love. I think she is fantastic. And if you don't know who she is, I will link, she probably has a website. I'll link it down below so that you can find out about her, because you really need to know about her. This book completely transformed the way I thought about vulnerability and emotional expression. So I've always felt the weight and importance of, emotion, but just through different experiences in my life, I think I've become a little bit more closed off than I realized that I had. And then I picked up Daring Greatly. This book is all about vulnerability being seen as power as opposed to being seen as weakness. And it talks about how we as human beings are guided by our emotions in a world that constantly tells us to mute them. This is definitely one of the books I'm considering doing a full review on, so if you're at all interested, please let me know. I mean, I'll probably do it anyway, but I'll feel so much better about it if I know that you actually want to see it. But yeah, it's such a good book. It literally did change my life, and I don't say that about books often. I love books. I read all the time, but it's very rare that I look at a book after I'm done with it and say that changed my life. But Daring Greatly definitely changed my life, and just talking about how to talk about emotions in a way that still feels legitimate. I feel like emotions are legitimate, but there are people out there who do try to delegitimize, is that the word? Yeah, I think so. Emotions and how people express their emotions. And so I just thought this book touched beautifully on that topic and encourages us to live with more vulnerability, because that's where we're going to find our power. So the last book that I want to talk about is called Difficult Conversations, and it's by, I want to say, Douglas Stone. And this book is actually very similar to Daring Greatly in that it made me think a lot about emotions. And you don't necessarily think about that when you talk about having difficult conversations. You want a tip as to how to get in there, express your point, all of that, and have the conversation successfully. But a lot of what the book covers is how to have conversations with people who are reacting to something emotionally, but not acknowledging that they're reacting to it emotionally. And the first thing is to understand that we all react to things emotionally, whether we want to or not. It's part of being human. And so that's a big part of the book. And then it goes into, again, how to different kinds of emotional drives that drive conversations, and tips to dealing with that in other people, but also tips to dealing with it in yourself and understanding when you are speaking and coming through straight from emotion. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but how to convey it in a way that is appropriate for the setting. So I definitely think it's those last two books, Daring Greatly and Difficult Conversations, they help a lot with the more human side of leadership. And so when you think about leadership, you know, there's a quality of getting a lot of people to follow you, or not necessarily a lot of people, but whoever you need, whoever you're leading, whoever you are, I guess, in charge of, inspiring them and motivating them. Leadership isn't management, and I will probably do a video on that in the future as well, and the difference between them. But leadership is about inspiring and motivating, and it's difficult to do that if you can't get to where people are and kind of assess the emotions that they're bringing to the proverbial table. So those are my 4 books on leadership. I hope that one of those is interesting to you at least. Hopefully you want to go pick something up and just learn a little bit about either your style or the styles of other people. I really enjoy doing videos like this. I used to have a booktube channel, and so I used to talk about books all the time. I will definitely be talking about books a lot on this channel as well. And so I just kind of wanted to get back to my roots a little bit and recommend some books and do what I hope is going to be a quick video. So I'm going to leave it there. Y'all know I talk a lot, and just say I hope to see you in the next one. See you then. Bye.